My name is Sarah Miekle and I'm the General Manager Marketing at Positively Wellington Tourism, and I am all about promoting Wellington as a visitor destination, and didn't we pull out a great one today? Certainly a new selling point. Anyway, I'm not going to tell you what I'm going to talk about until I get started, so I'll just get my notes in order and right, hit go. Right, it's challenging coming up with 20 slides of content that someone else wants to hear about, but I knew I wanted to speak to you about our fabulous food festival, Visa Wellington on a Plate. You see, I moonlight as one of the two festival co-directors, but how did I end up standing here apart from blaming Rachel? Tonight I hope to share some of my knowledge with you about Visa Wellington on a Plate. It's quite funny really, and to be honest, for a long time I was actually quite a bit of an anti-foodie. To be frank, I spent most of my formative years and some of my more recent years on a diet. And how does a professional dieter actually end up running a food festival? I actually think my connection goes right back to my birth. My mother, who incidentally has never needed to worship the mung bean or the lettuce leaf, smuggled me into New Zealand very late in her pregnancy. This was the 70s and Wellington lacked today's endless dining repertoire. So there my parents were eating at Whitby's at the James Cook Hotel, right in the middle of the restaurant her waters broke. My mum is the odd one out in her family. You see, there's lots and lots of fat genes in our family, and growing up there's often a comment that defines you as a child, and I can just hear ringing in my ears, are we eating for need or eating for pleasure? But you don't need to feel too sorry for me because it was hardly abuse. 9.9 times out of 10 it was the latter. I mean, 3 Cameo creams was never ever enough. But how is all of this relevant to Visa Wellington on a Plate? Well, 3 years ago, a colleague and I had this fab idea. Let's start a food festival. So we both love food, particularly eating it. We both loved Wellington, and we were fortunate enough to be in jobs to work for 2 organisations that promoted Wellington tourism and economic development. Bingo, let's organise a food festival. Like an epiphany, and trust me, there are many versions of the story, the 2 of us set about scoping a food festival. We looked at some really basic things. It had to take place at a time of year that needed a festival, it needed to support regional food producers and suppliers, and it needed to actually bring people to Wellington. So, Wellington on a Plate was born. Turn back the clock to 2009, on a wing and a prayer, we launched to the Wellington industry on the 1st of June 2009, with the festival going live for 2 weeks on the 17th of August. We had 6 weeks and blind faith. 42 restaurants jumped on board for Dine Wellington, and 30 festival events were pulled together and sold. We looked at lots of other food festivals to get ideas, Melbourne Food and Wine, Dine Out Vancouver, New York City Food and Wine, so we set our sights really high from the start. Dine Wellington was designed as a centrepiece of Wellington on a Plate, or WOAP as we call it, offering fixed price lunch menus and special dinner offers to create buzz during the festival. But we knew we also needed a platform for the incredibly talented food industry. The WOAP Festival Events program showcases the region's innovative food and beverage offerings, as well as personalities involved in the region's cuisine scene. Cupcakes, fish, cocktails, spices, coffee, pizza, meat, artisan cheese, chocolate, olive oil, beer and wine are just a handful of what's celebrated. But we are not alone. We are so lucky in Wellington. We have an incredibly committed people in our food industry, and WOAP is guided by an industry-led advisory board, including people like Mike Egan, which brings me back to dieting. I worked for Mike in my uni holidays, helping with the admin in the early days of One Red Dog, and my first job each day was to select the muffin flavour. Doomed, I tell you, doomed. I love this shop. This is some of the fab industry that are Wellington on a Plate. With limited experience in 2009 under our belt, we rolled into WOAP 2010, and WOAP became the WOAP. Yes, enter enormous global credit card company Visa, and we had a naming rights sponsor. 2010 saw the start of VWOAP innovations. The first cab off the rank was Burger Wellington, the Battle of the Burger competition where entrants compete to produce the most original burger, showcasing Wellington regional ingredients. This is social media gold. In 2010 we had 33 dine restaurants involved, and this year the stakes are even higher with 50. This guy, take your choice of delectable Wellington ingredients, add a dash of humour, and you is the talent, and we had something I prepared earlier, VWOAP's Alison Holst interpretation. 64 budding actors including this lovely guy, produced a 90-second instructional video, and over 35,000 people watched them on YouTube. 2010 saw 110% growth in Dine Wellington restaurants and 150% growth in festival events. It also saw an increase of a totally different kind, a significant increase in my waistline. All this eating was starting to have an impact. Think Easter, think visiting friends on a farm, think farm-sized portions. I'm pouring out of my jeans. I call Weight Watchers. Yes, it's true, in 2010 I did Weight Watchers during VWOP, and I still managed to eat 3 Dine Wellington menus, 2 burgers, and attended 11 festival events and lost 10 kilos. I discovered a level of self-control that I didn't even know that I had within me, and yes, it's okay to leave the top half of your burger and ask it for no cheese and only have a sip of that wine. And by the end of VWOP 2010, we're feeling more confident as a festival too. Our girl power team has grown to 10, and it's time to see what the big kids are doing. So we head off to Melbourne and I meet Nigella. Here's my plug. Tickets are on sale now for the Wellington Fish and Pike Masterclass, $50 for single sessions. We're working on White Nige for next year. So, and I stand here in front of you now. VWOP 2011 is only halfway through. To date, I've been to 8 events if you count tonight. I've eaten 3 burgers and had 3 Dine Wellington menus, and there's still a week to go. VWOP has grown again this year. We've got over 100 Dine Wellington restaurants and 80 events. One of the key roles of the festival is to create ambassadors and educate people about local products. Enter stage left for 2011 Wellington Bake Club, proudly sponsored by New World. There's 70 clubs who are taking part this year from around the region, and we even have 2 of them at work, and I have to say my white chocolate mud cake last week was excellent. So, where to from here? If someone had said to me that Wellington would be host to a chocolate festival, an international hummus festival, cocktail crawls, cupcake classes, chemical gastronomy, behind-the-scenes classes, having lunch with zoo animals, eating dinners entirely of beef or themed on by the colour white, I don't think I would have believed them. But I can firmly say that VWOP is here to stay in Wellington. You know what they say, you can never trust a skinny chef, but you can definitely trust a skinnier festival director, and I don't do it alone. I do it with a great group of girls. Amongst them, one's lactose intolerant, one of them's gluten intolerant, and 2 of them have been pregnant all year. But I hope you have an absolutely, positively delicious festival, and mark 11 to 26 August in your diaries.